Hey, Stalker! Remember Korean vertical scrolling webcomic? What's up, guys? I'm back, and I'm hitting you with another top 10 webtoons you need to be reading this year. To those of you who haven't watched my first video in this series, which looking at view statistics is like all of you, Webtoon is a Korean webcomic hosting site using a vertical scrolling format. I'm making this video because a lot of the popular stuff on Webtoon is the same old romance love triangle bullshit you're used to seeing everywhere. But underneath the surface, there are some genuine bangers that more people need to be reading. So without further ado, these are my top 10 webtoons of 2022. That rhymed. Yeah, that wasn't even planned. Psychic Studies is very clear on its premise before you even get to scroll downward. I learned how to hypnotize people from watching videos on YouTube. That girl is Daeyeon Jung, the bully in our class. You will like me. Ugh, what the fuck was that? The problem is... What the fuck? My hypnosis doesn't work the way I want it to. Chang-Kyu Kim thought learning hypnosis would make him popular with all the girls, but so far it's only made his social situation much worse. His hypnotism either constantly doesn't work or does the exact opposite of what he wants it to do. Let me go. What are you doing? Are you trying to make a fool of your teacher? Fuck, I'm done for! As your teacher, I have no choice but to love you! Seriously? Damn, I'm speechless. This is one of the best comedy series I've read, where the main character puts himself in all kinds of horrible situations, trying to hypnotize everyone into getting what he wants. Along the way, we accrue other characters with supernatural abilities, like this girl who can read minds, this girl who's haunted by a passive-aggressive ghost, and my favorite character, the edgy anime guy who always covers one of his eyes.
Hey, new guy. Didn't you say you were special?
I did.
What's so special about you then?
Actually, I can see the future. The thing is, though, that he can only see the future in his dreams. And, well, let's just say this guy needs to start keeping a dream journal for all the shit he forgets. All of the main character's powers are busted in one way or another. Except for the mind-reading girl. She's OP. Oh, and also her sister, who's a time traveler. And we use her power to go back in time and stop this girl that Chang-Kyu likes from killing herself. And then when we finally get to saving her, it turns into a fucking shonen battle scene between Chang-Kyu and the suicidal girl? What the fuck? And then another hypnotist is introduced who actually is good at hypnotism and hypnotizes the entire school to be obsessed with him. And I ain't even spoiling how that shit turns out. It's fucking hilarious. This wasn't even in the fucking script, but these reaction shots are fucking actually the funniest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. Like just them on their own is the reason you need to read this comic. Like holy shit. If you're looking for a good comedy webcomic series, this is an absolute must-read. Even if you aren't really into the comedy genre like me, which is why this is number 10 instead of number 1, take a chapter or two and laugh at these dumb kids abusing and being abused by their powers. This series is still ongoing, so join me in seeing what crazy shit our supernatural cast gets up to next. Because it's the genre I read the least, our next story is also a comedy. This one is ranked higher than Psychic Studies only because I found it first, but I genuinely couldn't tell you which I like more. Super Awkward Man's summary page goes like this. Is everyone around you a cringe lord? and honestly, I don't really need to read the rest. The story follows Sam as he goes extremely out of his way to avoid anything awkward at all. You see, Sam is actually a descendant of an ancient ancestry of all-powerful gods, the Black Hole Lords. However, to both the surprise and horror of the Black Hole Lord and his wife, their child was born into an anime art style, and so his father yeets him into space and onto Earth. Honestly, this may be way better than Psychic Study. Sam was cursed with eternal cringe, meaning that Sam was cursed with eternal cringe. Sam was cursed with eternal cringe. Fuck! Stop! Sam was cursed with eternal cringe, meaning that whenever anything cringe happens around him, it builds up an invisible force Sam has fittingly called Cringe Force. When enough of this cringe force builds up, Sam will literally explode into a giant nuclear world-ending explosion. In fact, how Sam found this out is because he literally caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. The story is all about Sam getting into all sorts of comical situations and trying to find a non-cringy way out of it. He develops many friends and allies along the way. As Sam tries to hide his curse from one particular girl, the curtain is slowly pulled back on what Sam actually values in this horrible life of his. Doritos. If this premise sounds even slightly appealing to you, you need to check this one out immediately. As always, links are down in the description. After running away from her abusive mother, Ji-Ah-sun works 3 jobs to take care of her younger sister, going to school and trying to live a normal life. Her only form of rest during the day is when she gets home after her night shift and sleeps the morning away before her next afternoon shift. Some might call this a life of suffering. But Ji-Ah is fulfilled, knowing that all of this effort is so her little sister can try to live a normal, happy life. One sleepy evening, Ji-Ah gets a text from her little sister. She had just sent her off to her field trip that morning. However, something feels wrong. Something is very, very wrong. In a scramble to find out what happened to her sister, Ji-Ah tries to make contact with one of the students who returned from the field trip, all of which have no memory of the previous day, and this girl specifically who came back with all sorts of injuries. When that doesn't work, it seems that all leads as to what could have possibly happened to her sister have led to a dead end. That is, until...
Hey, what's up, bitch?
The fuck? Now, I feel like I have to mention something here real fast. The plot of this comic goes all over the place. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I'll leave up to you. Even though while you're reading it, the flow of events generally makes sense. In retrospect, it feels as if the story flip-flops between all sorts of plot elements, different antagonists, and character alliances. Not to mention the ending, I mean, like, what the fuck? How do you even fucking choose to end something like this? This is really gonna bite me in the ass when Fake Humans 2 comes out. Fake Humans' real strength lies in its characters. As Ji-Ah's journey continues, we meet all sorts of friendly and unfriendly faces. All of the characters have their own unique mannerisms and behaviors, and it leads to some incredibly interesting characters. To add to this, it feels like each character has their own unique voice or dialect. The dialogue does an amazing job of suggesting what a character is supposed to sound like. It makes it feel like I'm almost watching a movie in my head, which isn't helped by some of the awesome cinematic shots. A lot of the time, you can tell that the characters are drawn on top of 3D models. Some of the poses feel stiff or robotic, and I think that just comes down to the limitations of 3D models. Funnily enough, it's hard to get those dynamic feeling poses without actually breaking the model. And then, what's the point of having the model? Despite that, the panel still managed to tell the story well through quiet moments of exploration, dialogue-heavy exposition, and tense action scenes alike. If you're looking for a compelling mystery story that takes all sorts of twists and turns, Fake Humans might just be the story for you. Just don't say I didn't warn you about the ending. Tomorrow is a wholesome story about killing yourself.
Whoa, hey, no, wait, whoa.
Hey, content warning, by the way. Junwoong Choi, for another butchered Korean name, finds himself in a hospital after trying to save a homeless man from jumping off a bridge. As he awakes, he is greeted by two beings. He remembers seeing them that night on the bridge. What do they want from me? It turns out that these two are actually Grim Reapers, beings of the underworld who decide the fate of every human who dies. Except, not really. These two are a part of Flashback, a corporation dedicated to saving the lives of those who wish to end theirs prematurely. They go around the world detecting anyone with high negative energy readings and step in before things turn sour. And their reason for meeting Junwoong is to recruit him to work with them on their team. What follows is a wholesome story about talking about guilt and shame and depression. We get these moments where all the characters just sit down and talk about all the shit that's been affecting them. And despite the cute art style, the thing these characters go through can be dark and disgusting even. It's an extremely human story about struggle and opposition, and how our main characters help these people through these dark moments. Usually with magic powers, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. But despite the supernatural elements, these are real struggles that real people have. And it's beautiful and powerful seeing these people overcome their demons. If this summary resonates with you at all, please give Tomorrow a read.
The key to happiness is whatever is in the link in the description. Check it out.
This one is going to be a bit odd. Not only is it not even finished, it's been over a year since its last update, and still it's incredibly short. There's only 21 chapters, and some of the chapters are only a couple pages long. Barely even a paragraph of plot has happened so far, and on top of it all, the dialogue is written in broken English. It's easy to tell that English isn't this author's first language, and clearly the art isn't even good at all. From wonky perspective to warped anatomy, this comic has it all. So then, if the art is bad and the dialogue is poorly translated and the plot has barely even started, why is this one on the list? Well, first of all, because it's called 6, I couldn't not make it the 6th spot on the list. What's special about this comic is a feeling. That feeling you get on a dark, cold winter night when no one else is around. The feeling of barely being able to read your homework over the dim candlelight across the table. That strange, isolating feeling you get walking through the woods, even if you're with your friends. What this comic does so flawlessly is make you feel like you're in this world with the characters. Multiple chapters can be spent just telling stories told purely through imagery and the environment. And the art, man, it may not be very accurate, but just look at this style. All the hatching and pure black shadows makes this fragile and obscure world feel real and tangible. And you know how it feels? Cold to the touch. This one will only take you probably 20 to 30 minutes to get through, so please check this one out. We're halfway through our list now, and I thought that this might be a good time to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video. I know, right? Mom, I got my first sponsorship! Well, anyway, today's video is sponsored by Have you ever felt a certain thirst? Do you suffer from a feeling of dryness in the back of your throat, in your mouth, your lips? Do you suffer from frequent and persistent headaches, increased levels of fatigue, lightheadedness or dizziness throughout the day? If you're experiencing one or all of these symptoms, then I would like to introduce you to today's sponsor, water. Scientists have recently discovered in lab studies that if you combine 2 hydrogen molecules with 1 oxygen molecule, you get this cool little liquid called water. This liquid, water, has actually been scientifically proven to already exist inside your own body. Think of it as the gasoline in a car. Don't put in enough gas and eventually your vehicle will become inoperable. Your body is a vehicle, and water is your fuel. With water now used in many medical practices, doctors have recommended patients with any of the previous symptoms drink 2 or more liters of water a day. Patients have seen immediate results only hours after drinking water. Since the invention of water, humans have been observed to have an increased lifespan of, on average, 74 years and 362 days since starting treatment. Despite all these benefits, water can be dangerous when taken too much. Too much water can cause feelings of bloatedness and result in sluggish movement and low motivation. Doctors recommend you only stick to the recommended 2 liters a day, even if symptoms grow worse. If you still have these symptoms after drinking water, your problems may be rooted in something else entirely. Water Corporation is not responsible for any injury or death involving water or the use of water. We have come to realize that strange beings we do not yet understand live at the bottom of large pockets of water on our planet. Water Corporation is also not responsible for the actions of these beings. Click the link below or go to waterco.com and use the promo code THEGIGNA to receive 30% off your first order of water. Thank you to Water for sponsoring this video. Seon Lee, finally one I can pronounce, is a normal student in a world full of superpowered humans called aberrants. Don't skip this one, please, I swear it gets interesting. Her family was a family of aberrants. Usually if an aberrant isn't born with their powers, they will develop sometime during puberty. The final aberrancy test is at the very end of high school, so for Seon Lee, she only has to pass one more test and she can finally live the rest of her life as a regular, normal person, and be friends with all her regular, normal friends. You see, if you actually fail the aberrancy test, as in you turn out to be an aberrant, you're shipped off to the Aberrant Corps to train to become a tool for the government, used to get rid of other criminal aberrants. A life doomed to following orders and being a pawn in a larger plan. Not the life for Seon Lee. She studied hard over most of her schooling career. She's aiming to get into the top law school and get the best job she can and finally be happy. She just has to pass this final test. If there's a chance, even the tiniest chance, that she isn't an aberrant like the rest of her family, she can live the life she's worked all these years for. All we can do now is wait and hope for the best. Well, fuck. Usually with these types of power systems and stories, it can either go down one of 2 routes. Either it's incredibly generic, like elements or superhuman abilities, or whatever the fuck, or it's incredibly complex and intricate to the point that it's confusing and impractical. Handjumper finds a nice balance between these two, having the powers based on colors, which is pretty generic, but each color controlling or doing something unique and interesting. Orange lets you manipulate objects, blue creates objects, red enhances your body, violet distorts perception, etc. But there's one color that no one really knows anything about. Teal. Our main character discovers that she can rewind time, but only by a couple of seconds. Now this would be a cool power for any normal character, but remember how our girl aced all her tests in school? Turns out she's an incredibly intelligent problem solver. Where we are right now in the story, we're getting to see firsthand how smart Seon is with this ability. It turns these power battles into a JoJo style stand battle the way they play mind games with each other. As usual, if this series interests you at all, link is in the description. Hellbound isn't so much about one character and their story as it is about a certain supernatural phenomena and how the world and all its communities have reacted to it. And none of this is spoilers, by the way, you learn all this in the first chapter. One day, these giant grotesque beings start appearing all around the world. Multiple of them would appear out of nowhere and all target a single person. They would finish them off by huddling around a circle and holding their hands out, at which point a flash of light would occur and the victim would be burnt to a crisp. Afterwards, the creatures would scutter off to an unknown location and disappear again. So, a monster invasion of some kind, right? Well, this story comes with one more crucial bit of information. As these attacks started to grow in number, people have reported seeing a giant floating disembodied head in front of them. This head would then speak to the person, saying their name, and You will go to hell in X amount of time. The head would then disappear afterwards. These weren't hallucinations of any kind, since people around the person claimed to have seen the same thing. As it turns out, when the amount of time the floating head said has passed, the person who received the notice would be visited by these giant grotesque beings. Without going too deep into spoilers and talking about each of the organizations in the story, Hellbound is about how these different organizations interpret this phenomena. Some think it's God punishing sinners, some think it's a supernatural force, some are just using it as an excuse to kill people. Hellbound isn't so much about the event itself, but more about how each of the different people in the story react to it, and how some even try to utilize it for their own gain. It's an incredibly intriguing and dynamic story, and, I don't say this lightly, really isn't like anything else I've ever read before. So if what I've said interests you, please check this one out. Now, you might notice so far that all of these webtoons have been originals. For those who don't know, they're basically the same thing as a Netflix original. Though what happens most of the time is that a creator will start a comic and then Webtoon will pick it up afterwards if it's gotten popular. Now, every comic in my previous video was a Canvas webtoon. Canvas is a separate side of Webtoon where any old schmo can upload their comic to the internet. And that's where I found a lot of the cool, more unique comics that I enjoyed last year. I felt bad this year since I mostly only read originals, except for 6, so I thought I'd throw the underdogs one more bone in this video. This is Retribution. Retribution takes place in a world where ghosts and spirits are the norm, and humans live in a sort of cold war with them via these masks, which makes a human immune to the influence of the paranormal.
Actually, they're demons, which is basically like the same thing, but you know, they're different.
It's a pretty cool premise for the story, and our story revolves around an equally cool cast of main characters. They're all pretty unique and well written. When the story starts, there's an almost intoxicating tension to the relationship of the two leads, which keeps you turning the page to see what happens. These two work incredibly well with each other, with some incredible potential for conflict and chemistry. Though the art does leave some to be desired for, the characters are all well designed. This guy with a biker helmet is my favorite. He's actually a priest and is almost always incredibly badass. These three feel like such a perfect trio, to be honest. I love all these characters and I'm incredibly interested to see where the story goes next. Sadly, this one has been on hiatus for a while, but let's show this author some love so they can see that people care about this series. This one is kind of special. I've actually been following it since its debut a couple months ago. Now, you might be expecting something incredibly deep, like deep and complex characters, an intricate plot, or ingenious world building, but in actuality, the reason this series is at the number 2 spot is quite simple. I don't really know how else to say this, but this series has some of the best action shots and fight scenes I've ever seen in a webtoon, and the way it uses the vertical scrolling format is incredible. Just look at how much more power this punch has as it travels in the direction you're scrolling. If you read any of the comics from this list, please read The Breaker. If not for the story, then just for the art, man. I mean, look at this shit! A girl wakes up alone on the floor of a cold, abandoned concrete room, next to a tomahawk with a strange sign carved into it. The girl quickly realizes she has no memory of where she is or even who she is. Suddenly, a low growling sound can be heard outside a door. Not having any other options, the girl grabs the tomahawk and exits the room. Wait a minute, didn't you already do this one? Wait, no, hold on, I'm getting to that part. No, wait, this is from your last video, Tomahawk Angel, right? You started it the exact same way, too. What's this all about, huh? Well, first of all, props to you for sitting through that god-awful video to the end. And second, this is Tomahawk Angel, the story of a girl whose name we learn to be Valerie, figuring out how to survive in an increasing cast of shady characters and discovering how she was involved in causing the end of the world. Except, actually, not at all. You see, this series isn't actually Tomahawk Angel, at least not the same one I talked about in my video last year. Shortly after I made that video, Tomahawk Angel actually got cancelled, and then rebooted over on Tapas as a Tapas original. That's right, the #1 webtoon I read this year isn't even a webtoon. Get fucked, you piece of shit! I'm sorry, that was incredibly rude. The series has a whole bunch of new artwork with an incredibly unique watercolor aesthetic, and a brand new story as well, and no more choose your own adventure stuff either. It's like the author actually watched my old video. Oh, he did. Odie, if you're watching this, well, thank you, I guess. And also question, how did you sit through that god-awful nightmare? Now, Tomahawk Angel is better than it ever has been. So if you even considered picking it up after watching my last video, you absolutely need to read this one immediately. And that wraps up our list. As usual, if you liked this video, don't subscribe. I don't usually make this kind of video, I'm a gaming channel, blah blah blah. Oh, and actually, I had one more honorable mention that I didn't get to in the video. It's called Breaker. Not The Breaker, it's Breaker. The fucking bastards beat me to it. I actually made this comic. I released it like 30 minutes ago as of recording this footage, so, yeah, I worked on it really hard for 6 months, and I'd like you to check it out, please. Also, subscribe to my Patreon. I have a couple different tiers. You can subscribe however much you want. I'm really bad at doing the rewards, so I'll try to do those. But if you want to support the channel, go read Breaker. Go subscribe to my Patreon. I mean, please, I literally have one patron, and it's just one fucking guy who comments on all of my YouTube videos. And it's just me and him. I need you to be in there. Please, it's so fucking awkward.